You may have heard of chai lattes, chai tea, or masala chai, but what is chai exactly? The word chai is actually the Hindi word for tea, which comes from the Chinese word for tea, cha. Chai is more than just a word, it also has a long history. In this video, we're going to be diving deep into the history of chai, and we'll also teach you how to make it using a handful of herbs and spices. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to us if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for future tea videos. In most of our videos, we learn about the intricacies of Japanese tea and share what we've learned during our travels around Japan. In our quest to find the best Japanese green tea for neo teas, we've learned a thing or two along the way. If you want to learn about these teas, we recommend checking out some of our other videos. Without further ado, let's get started. The history of chai tea. Chai has a history going back at least 5,000 years, where it was used in Ayurveda, an all-natural Indian healing practice. The drink was originally made by infusing different herbs into hot water. These strong medicinal herbs were native to India, and many of them are still used today for their health-giving properties. It wasn't until the 1800s that chai became a true tea. The tea plant was discovered in India, and shortly after, black teas were beginning to be consumed all around the subcontinent. The reason for this sudden rise in popularity has to do with the British colonization of India during that time. In India, the Assamika variety of tea plant is dominant. These Assam teas have much larger and thicker leaves, a higher caffeine content, and they are slightly more bitter in flavor. As a result, there has been a tendency throughout history to add things like milk, sugar, and other ingredients to this type of tea. Whereas in China and Japan, where the Sinensis variety is more popular, you don't see this happening. It was only natural for people to begin experimenting and combining these traditional Indian herbs with black tea and adding milk and sugar. This traditional form of masala chai or chai tea is very different from what it has become today. While there is no one true recipe for chai tea, it generally tends to contain ingredients like ginger, cardamom, cloves, cinnamon, and black peppercorn. While not as common, vanilla, nutmeg, mace, star anise, or fennel may also be seen in some traditional recipes. There have been some more modern variations of masala chai that include things like bay leaf, allspice, cacao, or saffron as well. At this point, you may be wondering, what does chai tea taste like? This has everything to do with which ingredients are used and in what quantities. For example, if you're using a lot of ginger and peppercorn, you're going to get a very spicy masala chai. If you use more vanilla, cinnamon, or nutmeg, you may get a subtle sweetness. Things like fennel or cumin will give it a savory quality, almost more like a food dish. Finally, the cardamom adds a unique cooling quality that you'll notice right away if you've ever had Earl Grey tea. Also, the extra spices shouldn't overshadow the flavor of the black tea leaves themselves. The flavor of a good black tea is warm, dark, and a little bit sweet, with notes of caramel and peach. How do you make chai tea? Although there are many different recipes for chai lattes out there, as we mentioned before, these are very different from the more traditional form of masala chai, and the flavor doesn't taste as authentic. For this recipe, we're going to try to trace down the roots of masala chai and try to prepare it in the traditional way. First, you're going to take a little bit of ginger and remove the skin. You can then grate it until you have about a teaspoon of finely grated ginger root. You can set this aside for now. Next, you can take out a mortar and pestle and place 7 cardamom seeds inside. These green cardamom seeds are actually just the pods, so you'll want to crack these open and actually use the seeds themselves inside the mix. You can grind in a very small amount of black pepper if you want, but this is something that is easy to overdo. The third step is to break off 1/2 of a whole clove and add in about a 1/4 inch of a cinnamon stick and put that in the mortar and pestle as well. Once you have a coarse powder, you are ready to continue to the next step. Step 4, take 1½ cups of oat milk and pour it into a metal cooking pan. Mix this in with 1½ cups of filtered water and turn on the heat. You can use less water if you want the chai tea to be creamier, or more water if you want it to be closer to a regular cup of tea. Step 5, as the milk is heating, you can start adding in other ingredients. First, start by adding in that spice mixture that you created. If you want to make it sweet, you can add up to 1 tablespoon of sugar, but if you want to limit your sugar intake, 2 teaspoons is better. Step 6, add in 2 teaspoons of your favorite Indian black tea. If the tea you're using comes in more of a powder, like you might see in a tea bag, 2 teaspoons is a good measurement, but if you're using loose leaf black tea, you can use 5 grams of leaves instead. Step 7. Just as the pan is about to reach boiling, you can add in the grated ginger. Step 8. Once the water boils, you'll notice that the foam will start to rise to the surface. Before it hits the top of the pan, you can turn off the heat and let it fall down. Now you can turn up the heat again so that the foam rises, and repeat this 3 more times until everything is mixed in and had a chance to brew. This also gives you something to do while you're waiting for your tea to finish. Step 9. Once the heat is finally off, your chai tea is ready to serve. You can pour it through a filter into your favorite mug to sift out some of the larger pieces and enjoy. If you want a caffeine-free alternative, you can substitute the black tea for rooibos. which will give you a naturally sweet and earthy profile. As some of you know, our specialty is not in black teas, but actually in Japanese green tea. In most of our videos, we talk about different types of Japanese green teas and how they're grown, produced, and prepared. We also traveled to Japan to meet with farmers and learn about teas. After visiting dozens of different tea farms and sampling hundreds of different types of teas, we have settled on a small handful of the very best, and we like to share them with people all around the world on our website, neoteas.com. If you'd like to support this channel, we would really appreciate it if you could try some of these teas for yourself and let us know what you think. We also have samplers if you're interested in trying a lot of our teas at once. Another way to support this channel is by subscribing and staying tuned for future tea videos. If you have any questions about Japanese green tea or tea in general, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Until then, we'll see you next time.